I think one of the big tragedies is we don't believe we have a compelling story, so we try and tell somebody else's story.
Well, welcome to the show, the Make It Stick podcast. Today we have an awesome guest. His name is David Balestri. He has massively blessed my life. He's an awesome business coach who has been mentoring businesses for over 13 years. Some of his businesses have gone from a starting point to multi-million dollar businesses, and he works with clients all over the world. So he's going to come on today and share a whole bunch of good stuff for us business owners who want to learn how to pivot, scale our business, and all that good stuff. So welcome to the show, David. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Thank you. It's such an honor to be on here, and looking forward to having a chat and seeing where we go today.
It's an honor to have you. I've heard you speak so many times. I follow you. We've had the privilege of having like different chats, and every time we've chatted, I've thought I need to do a podcast with you because the stuff that comes out is so valuable. So I want to capture it today. So I'm gonna juice David today for you guys. So let's kick it off with just your journey. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today.
Sure. I started out really as a kidpreneur. It's one of the interesting sort of things about me. I started my first business when I was 10 years old. I was our family was a government housing type situation. We were migrants into Australia. We come from Argentina, so we're South American. I'm fully imported. So we grew up, in government housing situation. And I just think as from a young age, the notion of, I wouldn't have said business, I would have just said I was quite adventurous. And around 10 years old, I got a bit frustrated. Dad didn't really give us pocket money. He was busy doing what he was doing. And so I came up with this idea to start a car wash business with a couple of my friends. I roped in a couple of my little buddies. They were kind of 9 and 8 years old. And we came up with a scheme, and I was the salesman. And, we started washing cars for $1 on a Saturday of all things, because obviously we were in school. And that really... it was almost like from that point on, the world of business and entrepreneurship, it just intrigued me. And to some degree even distracted me. After the car wash business, my father ended up buying into a pizza shop, and I became the waiter at 11. I was the waiter at my father's pizza shop. I loved it. At 11 years old, I'm in primary school. I'm in year 6 or something. And every after I go straight from school, straight to my father's pizza shop that was open in the evening. And I'd just become the waiter, and I loved it. I loved doing that. And the only thing was my dad, he was a little bit cheap at the time, and he wouldn't pay me a wage. So but I was ambitious, man. I was ambitious. So I ended up going and working for not really my dad's opposition, but a couple of doors down there was a family that ran a cafe. And I went and did a deal. I was sort of at 11, 12. I went and did a deal with them, and I offered to work for them. And this is going a while back now. They offered to pay me $1.50 an hour. So I took the job. I went and told my dad, actually. I said to my dad, the Greek family, in the cafe, they're willing to pay me $1.50 an hour. But I said to my dad, I'll stay working for you if you match it. And
so you did the negotiation dance.
I did remember I'm 11. I'm 11, 12 years old. Anyway, my dad said no. I don't think he believed I was going to go. I think he was like, there's no way. And I quit. I went and worked for the Greeks for about a year. And then I got headhunted by their opposition, another cafe, which was owned by a Lebanese family. It's kind of like multicultural city, right? And they doubled my wage. He doubled my wage to $3 an hour. So I quit working for the Greeks. I went and worked for this guy. And then my father eventually, when I was 13 and a half, 14, he had an opportunity to buy this Greek family's cafe out. And so he came, and I did a deal with my dad at 14 that I would leave school. I was year 9. I'd leave school and become officially my father's business partner. So I did that till I was about 18.
At
and then
14?
At 14.
Wow.
And so I bought my first business by myself when I was 18. It was a cafe, and then really continued to buy businesses into my 20s. Got married. My wife, she was a dog groomer, pet grooming. So we started building pet grooming businesses. And then I dabbled. Sometimes I'd be in business. Sometimes I'd go and work in sales and corporate life. I wanted to expand out a little bit.
Yeah.
But really, I've been in that business realm since I was 10. Either directly owning a business, or with my family business, or even once I got married with my wife. And so
That's awesome.
it's been a great adventure. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And then
how did
sorry. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how did you go from? I mean, that's an awesome journey start, and it's funny because it reminds me of when I was little. I was in like year 2, and I would capture lizards and I'd sell them to my friends at school. That was my little business.
Awesome.
But it's
I love that.
It's interesting to see how early these things start. So how did you then shift into like what you're doing today, and how did that story unfold?
Yeah, well, in my mid 30s, so at that time, we ran a chain of dog grooming salons. We live on the Central Coast in Australia, and we had several enterprises there. My wife was really running that. I was sort of more the business manager, but I was also working. I was working in a corporate environment for a multinational company. I'm 35, working in this. And I got a promotion. It was a real moment. I was in kind of middle to senior management, and 200,000 people work for this multinational. And they gave me a promotion, and they gave me an offer to sponsor me to do an MBA to become like a national leadership pathway for them. But it meant that I would have to, they would give me the time off. It was going to be over 4 years. They were going to sponsor everything, but I had to contract myself for 10 years to work for this company if I was going to do that. A business degree, an MBA.
Oh, okay.
So they were going to sponsor that. And I just had to sign a form that said that I would contract to work for this multinational for the next 10 years. And if I left before that, there were financial penalty clauses, because I had to really pay back. Then I would have had to pay back the MBA, right? The course. And it was a real moment. It was a moment of great. It was a promotion. It was an acknowledgement of. At that time. I had 14 direct reports and about 300 guys working under in a logistics situation, which I loved. It really expanded me. Our budget was $80 million a month, and so it was a high responsibility, high pressure. But I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed almost being I felt like an entrepreneur in a bigger company. But I remember when I went home to celebrate and think about it, I began to think about the next 40 years of my life. Do I want to be a corporate guy in the boardrooms of corporate world, and all of that? And I did this exercise where I projected, and I thought, okay, I'm 65 years old, and I've taken this career path. And I asked this question. I said, am I happy? Am I happy? Do I feel fulfilled having worked and made, great business for this multinational? And I thought, I'm not going to be happy. I'm not. And then, so the question then came back to, what's going to make you happy or fulfilled? What would I be fulfilled if I could do anything for the next 40 years? What would I do? And it was immediate. It was like, I want to help business people. I want to help entrepreneurs. I was already doing it on the side, in the sense people were coming to me all the time, but it wasn't a formal thing. And I thought, well, why am I going to spend the next 40 years doing something that I don't love? I like it. It's going to pay me when I can actually go and do something that's going to fulfill me. And so I quit. I quit working for a multinational, and I began my consultancy practice. At that time, it was called Giant Maker Coach. And I began life coaching and business coaching with people. And man, I tell you, I earned less money the first couple of years. I went from a corporate wage to, starting out. But I was happy and
awesome.
Learning a lot, came alive. in a way that I hadn't for a long time. And so that's been now 13 years. And
Wow.
yeah, it's gone from, that to the global thing that it is today.
So good. So now the next question is, how did it get to that global? Like, what was the shift point, or like, when did you see the momentum just pick up for that
Yeah.
business?
Well, so I pivoted at 35. So, you know, I
Yeah.
I that's not unusual. Most It's actually a little early. Most people have a major pivot probably in their 40s, right? 40s.
Yeah.
So I kind of jumped in a little bit, but one of the things that happened, it was scary, and to some degree, you're leaving some comfort zones. I think
Yeah.
one of the
So
big things
scary.
for me, I remember one of the big things for me was uh, I started getting recommended by my clients to other companies that were bigger, and the work started coming. It was much larger than I was probably used to, and started to scare me a bit to go, hang on, I just want to make sure that I'm not biting off more than I can chew. But I remember there was just something inside of me that just said, you need to be brave. And so in the end, what I started to do was I really made a very big commitment to, I was already, personal development was always a big thing, but I just sort of took it on steroids, and I just made sure I said to myself, I'm never going to walk in a room that I'm not sort of 4 or 5 times prepared for.
Yeah.
And so every time I'd show up to a new contract or a new problem to solve for a company, I just made sure that I was like 300% prepared, like that I
Right.
was going to bring ultimate value, and I was going to bring the wow, the wow.
Yeah.
I just committed myself. If I'm going to stand in a room, I'm going to bring the wow. And if I can't bring the
It's
wow,
awesome.
I'll let somebody else go into that room. I'll just
So
say, can't serve you.
what did you do different to start bringing that into these meetings?
Yeah. I mean, a couple of things was this, that, so I'm a pretty disciplined guy. I
Yeah.
wasn't in my teens, but in my 20s, one of the big shifts for me was I was about 21. I said to you, I'd left school very early.
Yeah.
So I kind of torpedoed my formal education, if you think about it that way. At 21, I just committed, I was really sort of a bit upset with myself that I didn't have a university degree and didn't have a high school degree. And so there was sort of that playing on. And then this thought came to me, well, why, like at 21, why can't I continue my education? And why
Yeah.
can't I continue it onwards? So what I did is I just made a commitment. I said, you know what, instead of watching television in the evening, I was going to give 2 hours every night to personal development, read books,
Wow. Yeah.
watch the right people. I mean, turn television off, and just kind of stick into, I was like leadership, business, wealth creation, life success, spirituality. And so
Yeah.
I just really committed myself deeply to that. So by the time then I hit 35, I'm ready, right? I'm resourced. I'm a couple of I'm thousands of hours in. Because if you think about it
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
it's about 500 hours, roughly somewhere in the midst of 10 hours a week. So 500 hours a year of personal development. By the time I'm 21 to 14, I'm 7,000 hours in. So
Yeah.
there's not many problems at that point within those spheres that I just said. There's not many problems that I at least can't bring some measure of input into,
Yeah.
either experientially or by resource. What happened when I was 35? I always say the first prosperity that happened when I pivoted into this into my consultancy businesses wasn't money, because I earned less money in the first couple of years than I did in corporate life. The first prosperity was time, because in corporate world I
Mm.
was working 80 to 90 hours a week. When I began consulting, you're doing your face to face, but I'm probably working physically face to face 25 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
So I've got all this other time. So what do? Well, I just amped it up. Instead of just 10 hours a week, I started, really taking 2.5 days of just, get better resourced. And the other thing that happened really was in my mid 30s, I started to connect from a mentorship perspective with the right people. In my 20s, you meet people and, hey, can I have a lunch and this and that. But I really got serious about. I always say to many of my clients, I say to them, find someone who is living in your preferred future, right? And then go and pursue them. However, whatever that looks like, go and buy their books. If they're accessible to you, go and figure out how to make that work. I'm not talking about waste their time, by the way. If you can afford, like if you can afford to, engage them professionally, do whatever you need to do. But that was a big shift for me. It began to accelerate my confidence. It began to strengthen my world because they became sounding boards. And especially when I was pushing into some deep waters of big stuff, I could refer to them and I could say to them, hey, help me here. What do you think? And I could test it with them. This is what I'm thinking. And they'd be like, do this, do that, tweak this. And so when I went in and then I'm speaking in front of CEOs or, multi-million-dollar companies, I just had confidence because my mentors were like my coaches, in my world. That was a big difference.
So it's that putting that time into personal development, you doubled down onto it and you found a good mentor, and then you saw. So what was the shift like? Was it rapid or?
It was exponential because, again, if you can, with your product or your service, like if you can bring the wow, like, we're talking about, we talk about the purple cow. Everyone, most people in this space know Seth Godin the purple cow. Quickly? Yeah, really, it's this thing about what differentiates you from everybody else in the market. Like if you are just like everybody else, you're irrelevant. That's just the basic thing. Or you have to fight on price. You have to be the cheapest. And which is the worst. Well, it's not the worst. It's a USP. But it's the toughest one. If you're going to be the cheapest, you'll end up working for nothing. But the thought about the purple cow is just to really understand that as unique as your fingerprints are and your DNA construct is that no one else carries, how do you bring some of those that uniqueness? How do you bring it into your product or your service? Because someone might say, "Well, Dave, I just sell. I sell, I don't know, toothpicks. Let's just put it this way: I sell toothpicks. Toothpicks aren't all that sexy, and there's not a lot you can do with toothpicks. But I want to say to you that there absolutely is, because they can be packaged. They can be packaged a different way. Your sales system can be totally different from your feedback loop, the way that you, after someone's bought them, how, if they hear from you, there's a myriad of different things that you can do. So what is this USP? And so it was just that thought about really understanding what is some of these unique dynamics that are in you, and how can you tell that story in your services that you provide, or in the product that it is, in your marketing, from your web presence to your social media to your networking. No one carries my story. No one carries my story. But I wanted to tell you, every client that's ever worked for me knows my story, because they get it. No one's ever asked me, by the way, to see a certificate of my coaching prowess. What university did you get? No one's ever asked that, because my story is so compelling. And now, 13 years in, the testimony of all the business people that I've worked with and the companies that I've worked with and their successes, it's like it's irrelevant that someone would ask me, well, what are your formal qualifications that make you a business coach?
Yeah, that's so good. So it's like finding your purple cow, finding what makes you different and infusing that into your business. So how do you tell those stories, or how do you make your story, how do you actually infuse it into your business and not just think you are, if that makes sense?
Yeah. I think you have to have a compelling story, and everybody does. It's just that most people don't know how to tell their story in a compelling way. It's got to be conveyed it's got to be technicolor and passion, and it's got to be thought through. I just think that a lot of the reason why a lot of businesses are boring is that most entrepreneurs are too busy in their business, and they make no space to work on their business or to think deeply into these spaces. It's almost like, oh yeah, that's kind of an edge part. This isn't, but this is the real stuff here, and that's a big problem. I always say, if you want to be successful, you as an entrepreneur, you must be doubly committed to working on yourself and your story than you are on working in the business. It's that, working on rather than in. I tell you, the funny story is I got this guy that came, he's a developer. He came in with a problem. This is in the early days of my coaching. He says to me, I'm so busy, but my business, even though I'm so busy, I'm not really making the money that I think I should make. And the business is one crisis after another. He says, I'm exhausted. I get to the weekend and I just literally just stare at a wall for 2 days. And then I start again on Monday. Got problems with my staff, all that sort of stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
So he says to me, please, can you help me? What should I do? And I said to him, you need to take a day off through the week. And I remember he looked at me as if I should have just told him to sacrifice his firstborn child. Like he was like, that's nuts. I just told you I don't have enough time to do the things that I need to do in the business. And you're telling me that I got to take an entire day in the week. I'm not talking about the weekend, off in the week. Wow. Well, you know what he did? He walked away. He said, nah, you're not going to coach me. 6 months later, listen to this, 6 months later, he calls me up and he says to me, listen, man, I'm really desperate. You're the guy. You need to help me. I can see the stuff you've done with other people. You need to help me. He says, and I said to him, is the situation the same? He says, it's worse. He said, what should I do? And I said to him, take the day off a week, right? He hung up on me. He hung up on me. He was just like, oh, you're a fool. That makes no sense at all. Do you know, a year later, he called me and he said to me, hey, I want to tell you, out of desperation, he said, I did what you told me to do. Like I did it. He goes, I started taking a day off. He goes, first of all, he goes, I had to sleep. He goes, but after the first couple of weeks, he said, took a day off, took a journal, switched the phone off, and I started thinking about the business. Started thinking about how to get out of the whirlwind, right?
Yes.
He said, I got to tell you, man, in 60 days, he says, this is unbelievable. I'm back in control. Like I'm back on top of the business. The business isn't on top of me. So counterintuitive around that.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, because he started doing, this is smart. This whole thought about USP, thinking about your story, all that. This shouldn't be just after you finish work late at night, 30 minutes before you go to bed and you're exhausted. That's not when you should be thinking about that. Like you got to be serious about it. And the more serious you are, you'll be able to cut through and find your story, find your unique selling proposition, and find the thing that makes you stand out from the 1,000 other people that are in your industry.
That's so good.
It takes work. Yeah.
That's literally like, because I think sometimes people think of marketing or telling your story as a nice to have, but more so just like the whole tell your story. Like, do you know who your target audience is? Like, and are you able to really communicate that well? They think that it's like, yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But that's literally the thing you're saying is how you work on your business. It's like how you can get ahead and take control and shift into that next.
I've got this training course that I do for business people. And the first module that I teach on it's this session called You Are the Bottleneck, right? Whether you're a startup entrepreneur, whether you're an established business person, or even, I got to tell you, I mean, one of the stories I tell is a guy that was a bottleneck for his business and he was at $10 million a year. I mean, that's a significant business, right? He's at $10 million and he's the but he's the bottleneck. He was the bottleneck. Once we worked on that, he and I, we did some sessions on it. He's now at 100 million, right?
Crazy.
But the shifts were mostly in him. They were mostly in him, right? So So I always say, whether you're a startup entrepreneur, you are the bottleneck, right? Whether you're fully established, you're a bottleneck. So we're all at some level of bottlenecking. How do we do that? Well, we've got to do the time. We've got to. Our story isn't just a set and forget. By the way, it's something that you've got to continue to evolve as your business evolves, as your customer base evolves. You got to look at ways to be able to tell your story even more creatively. And not everybody's going to be a motivator, and But
well, yeah, that's a good question. So, are you saying that everyone needs to be a thought leader, or like is there going to be every industry that you're going to try and get to the top, or try and share, like, be that kind of go-to thought leader, or is there levels to it? Like, are you telling everyone, say, like, how do you find your story and then start putting that out? Does that mean being a thought leader?
I think that, again, if we come back to if we are the bottleneck, then depending on who we are in our wiring is going to determine how we're going to be positioned as entrepreneurs, right? So if you just think about the personality profiles, right? Just think the quick one. Think about the disc, right? Driver, inspirer, steady, or compliant, right? Depending on which of those four you are, will determine how you, as the leader in your business, should operate that business. If you're a driver, then of course you're going to be that A-type personality that's breaking through, always bigger, better, vision. Let's take the mountain. If you're the I, if you're the inspirer, you're the motivator, man. You're the one that's motivating the team, always can tell the story, vision. If you're the steady, then actually you're more system orientated. And at that point, I say for people that are S or C as entrepreneurs, I don't think they need to be thought leaders. I think they need to resonate with other people potentially in the industry that are thought leaders. There is, come on, we have never been as resourced as we are with Dr. Google. Everything that you need, listen to this, everything that you need to be outstanding in business is absolutely available to you on Google. Now, finding the right information requires that you think about the right questions. All you got to do is type the right question into that search bar and you're away. So, I would say, rather than go, oh man, how do I answer three hard questions? How do I find the three top answers? It's almost like, figure out the three questions. If you had the ultimate business guru in front of you, and you could only ask, like the genie in the bottle, right? You could only ask three questions. What are those three questions you could ask? And I would say, write them down and actually do an exercise. Type them into Google, and figure, like, you'll be amazed. It'll start something in you. I'm not saying this is the ultimate. It'll start something in you. It'll start it.
That's so good. So it's not that everyone needs to be that thought leader, constantly putting out these thought leading ideas and whatnot, but for the people, not
everybody's going to be Simon Sinek. No,
exactly. Not everyone's going to be like doing those kind of TED Talks and whatnot. But if we do need to be putting out our stories and creating, that, like, magnetizing people towards us, what are some, like, tips you have into how to start getting into that, or how do you say get into that content for online or speaking in front of people and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think the first thing is you've got to believe that you have a compelling story, right? No one has your story. No one has it. And I think one of the big tragedies is we try and we don't believe we have a compelling story, so we try and tell somebody else's story, right? Like understand your story is awesome. You might know yet how to say it in a compelling way, but the only authenticity, right? Authenticity is so attractional, and people can smell it. They can sense it when someone is telling their story with great passion and great perspective. One of the things I would say to you to help you to tell your story is this. I think for many people, we haven't thought about our story well. And so we just kind of, sometimes we put a negative connotation on the story. So I could tell my story. The way I could tell my story is, man, I'm a high school dropout that, didn't finish education,
yes,
that is the story, right? I'm a poor kid. I'm a high school dropout. Like, there's all that in my story. I blew up a business once. I've had 12 businesses. I blew one up, right?
yeah,
Oh, well, I blew up. So I could tell my story and go, no one wants to hear that tragic thing. That's not the story that I tell. Like, those things are in the drama, but I actually tell my story. I'm very passionate about my story because it's a story of empowerment of a kid that started, without certain advantages and overcame those dynamics and found a way to not only do something with his life, but now help hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other people capture, the best part of them and move forward. So I think part of it is you've got to believe that your story is worth telling, because if you don't believe it, no one else will. The second thing I'd say is this, that there is an art to telling your story. There's an art to it. And you need to just go and do the work. There's a great friend. I don't know if you know this guy, Lucas, that's Sam Cawthorn. Do you know him at all?
No, I haven't heard of him.
So let me give you a shameless plug. I don't get a kickback from it. The Speakers Institute. Well, he's based here in Sydney. It's world class. And so really this guy, the program, you can do lots of different programs there. They do this intensive 4-day weekend or something. A friend of mine just went and did it. You're going to pay for it, but powerful at telling your story. It's worth the investment. I always think that sometimes we're willing to go and buy, I don't know, a piece of hardware, whatever. But then all of a sudden we get intimidated when it's like, spend money on you, on training you, on, it's almost like, come on, let's spend the money. Like, it's invest them. It's a business investment. It's not a luxury. It's a business investment, Your story is worth telling. You need to believe that. You need to find a way to tell your story that is empowering, that's empowered you, will empower others. Say it with passion, and just go and do the training. Go get sharp. Don't go and wing it. I learned from the best, man. I learned from the best. And if you're on this call and you go, well, I don't have, several $1,000s to kind of, get upskilled, man, watch YouTube videos. Not just for the content of what they say. Watch how they architect an 18-minute talk. Watch how they walk on the stage. Watch how they dress. Watch the hand movements, or like you know what I mean? Like, watch 100 of them and write down, okay, what are these things? And then begin to take a couple of those, perfect that, that would be the, if you don't have the money to invest at this point.
Yeah, definitely. Like, when you're trying to learn from someone, like watching a video, if you just watch it once or twice and then you try and go copy that, you're not actually it's not gonna come out of you. But if you're filling yourself with these things and you're listening to how people talk, that's when we start to talk like other people. We start to get like they rub off on us. It's more about taking in a whole bunch of really good speakers and good content, and then it actually starts to infuse it in you. And then when you're making content, when you're making a video, when you're getting up to speak, it's not like, it's way easier to recall things because you've been putting all that info in, you've been putting all that stuff in, and it just like you're now well, and it's coming out.
I just think the thing about it is this, like, respectfully, if you're going to do a 10-minute presentation in front of a group, let me just give you a real practical 10-minute presentation in front of the group. When you're standing in front of the group, it shouldn't be the first time that you've given that presentation. You should have done that presentation maybe 6 times in front of the mirror in 2 or 3 days before that, right? You should have been thinking it through, like, as long as you've got that sort of leeway. But the first time, you don't wing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, people go, oh man, there's such a natural. It's like, oh, Dave, like when I'm in front of a client, let's say, and I'm doing a coaching call, it's not the first time I've thought about the client or that meeting when I turn the Zoom on or whatever. Like I've thought about that all week. I've written notes down. I've thought about different things that we did in our last session and where we've been working towards. Like I've been thinking about it a lot. I've been thinking about when he asked me that question, this is the answer. Like prepared, like I turn up prepared. You got to turn up prepared. If you're gonna speak to people on any platform, man, even if it's 3 people, like turn up prepared. Great confidence when you're prepared. Otherwise, you're fighting all the insecurities, man. You just, I would say, turn up on the stage before you arrive. Like your presence. Like turn up before you arrive. I've already before I got on this call today, since when you reached out to me, I was already thought about. Okay, we're going to bring value in this 45 minutes, whatever it is. We're going to bring value in this space.
That's awesome. All right, so now that we're getting an idea of what it takes, we need to prepare, we need to spend time on our story. How do we pivot, say, in times where there's, the pandemic's causing lockdowns or even just things moving into the future? We want to pivot stuff more online. So can you just talk to a business person? Maybe it's a service-based business. Okay. They're trying to scale, and this is their first step into doing more online stuff. What's some practical things just to begin and get flowing?
Yeah, I mean, I think online, sometimes it can feel a bit intimidating because it's just, oh man, I think the first thing is you have to put yourself in the field. You've got to get in the game. You can't go, oh well, I'm just gonna kind of, I'll wait and I remember speaking to some people years ago about, where's your website? And they're like, oh, you know what? I've got this guy and we're working on it. And I'm like, how long have you been working on it? Oh, 24 months, And I'm like, dude, put a landing page up. Like, get started. Like, are you on social media? Are you, Facebook, Insta, LinkedIn, TikTok? Are you on? Oh, we're just trying to work out. I'm like, how long have you been doing that for?
Yeah.
If you've been doing it for more, like if you've been thinking it through for more than 90 days, it's irrelevant anyway because it's moved. Like it's moved. So you got to get yourself in the game. That's the first one is got to get yourself in the game. The second one is this thought about. I think too many people jump on online and think that they think old methodology is in. It's kind of like, oh, in the olden days, we create a flyer and put it in a letterbox, right? If you need Jim's mowing, call this number. And so what they do is they think, oh, so online is the same. I just put up ads and then customers come. And you and I know that doesn't work, right? Like it's social media. It's a conversation. People want, it's a tribe. It's a world. And you've got to go and join that world. And could you imagine if every time you met someone, they're always trying to sell you something, sell you something? It's a bit like in this, you're a bit young for this, but when in Australia, people started getting all this network marketing stuff, right? And Amway was the big deal. This is 1980s, right? And all of a sudden, this guy would go, hey, man, love to do a coffee with you. And you'd think, oh, okay, like maybe, just friendship. And then within about 20 seconds, they'd be trying to sell you Amway, right? Sign you up to Amway. And then eventually you'd say, I don't want to know. I don't want to see that guy anymore. Every time he'd be like, hey, can you, nah, man, I'm busy, whatever. Same thing happens with many businesses. They want to get onto the online space because they realize that is where a lot of your marketing is going to be. But it's not like the traditional marketing. You'll notice if you jump on any of my social media, there are some things that I, from time to time, where I'll go, hey, I'm doing this course. Might want to jump in on that. But I got to tell you, I'm having a conversation. I'm telling stories. I'm not overtly trying to sell anything. I'm just trying to be part of a conversation. And people come to me and say to me, hey man, have you got products to sell? Like, tell me about your coaching. You're an interesting guy. Like, I think you need to be in my world. How do I connect to you? What does that look like? And so all of a sudden, I'm not trying to shove anything down someone's throat. I'm that, I'm earning the right to be in the
Yeah.
room with them.
Yeah.
I'm earning the right by conversation. So I just say that's a really important one for people that are just jumping in, or people that are finding it's not really like the effectiveness isn't really there. And it's almost like, well, maybe because what you're doing is you just feel like your company feels like a billboard,
Yeah.
And rather than showing the value you can bring to people's world, all they're hearing is buy from me, buy from me, buy from me. Well, I don't
Yeah.
even know you. I don't even
It's
know
the
you yet.
desperation.
I
It's like
don't.
you're coming across
Yeah,
desperate and you're trying to get that short-term fix. Like, oh, if we put out a video, and we'll get some work in the first week, like that's not the benefit of putting out videos, because you want to be building something much bigger and having people flowing your way. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think it's like
There
lots
are
of
there are.
desperation.
I think you and I have spoken about this before. Like, this is a gem, right? You can have this one
Yeah.
for
I
nothing.
remember this.
There are three questions that every person is asking you when they meet you for the first time that they'll never ask you. Three questions. Now,
Yep.
including when people meet you for the first time on social media or meet your page or interact with you. Three questions. The first question that they're never going to ask you, but they're asking you, and you have to answer it, is, can I trust you? Can I trust you? The second one is, do you like me? The third one is, will you do what you've promised to do? Now,
Wow.
listen, no one's ever going to ask you, no one ever comes up to you and say, hey, my name's John. Can I trust you? Do you like me? Will you do what you say you'll do? But they're asking you those questions because they are human questions that human beings in interacting ask people. And if
Yeah.
you can't answer those questions well through story, through how you introduce, yourself and all the rest, you've got to figure out a way. How can the way that we present ourselves, how can it come across that we're trustworthy? I mean, you need to be trustworthy first off. If you're not, well,
Yeah.
you're on another deal. That we actually care about the customer that we've never
Yes.
met, that we care about people that we're, and the third one, that we will do the thing that we say we will do. Like, how will you do that? There's a million ways to do that, by the way, which, if they want to figure out more to do that, they should, listen to what you're doing. They should get a business coach. This is, I'm just giving you the headlines. If you want the deep, well, you've got to go and do the research, go and engage properly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So for you, how much time do you spend on putting out content for social media? Like, how does it look like in your week, and how do you keep up with that demand?
Yeah, I just think because it's built in, it's a conversation that I'm having, right, with the tribes, with the people that follow me, with the tribes that I'm a part of. So, I try and be pretty regular. I'm not a once a month put something up. Like, I'm every day, every second day. And you go, wow, every day, that takes a long time. 5 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe max. I just have it's part of my world. Because I'm a reader, right? Because I'm absorbing, man, I'll read something that'll just fire me up, and I'll just go, I got to tell my friends. I got to tell my friends this thing, this great thought. And that's so, awesome. 5 to 8 minutes. And it's interesting, 5 to 8 minutes every day, every second day, over several years, places me as an authority in my sphere, not only in Australia, but globally. Globally. I mean, I've done the work. I'm not saying I haven't. All I'm saying to you is, it's not like I've got, a massive back office with 100 marketers doing it. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have that. You should have whatever you need, but just in my world, it's personally 5 to 8 minutes. Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's so interesting because, like, you talk about the work that goes into it, the research, the preparing, but when it comes down to your actual practical time in the week, like, because you're already doing all this preparing, it's a lifestyle, the content just kind of overflows. It's
an overflow. Right. Yeah. It's not hard. It's not like I got to think about, oh man, what am I going to come up? I live inspired. I always say that, when people are asking me about, consolidate. Oh, coaches are really, expensive, and I just go, hang on a second. You're not paying me an hourly rate. When I stand in front of you for an hour and we have a business meeting, you're not paying me for 1 hour. What you're paying me for, I'm 48 years old, right? You're paying me for 27 years at 500 hours a year of investment. You're paying for access for 1 hour to a 13,500 hour library of world's best kind of resource in the fields of business, finance, leadership, and spirituality. You're paying for 1 hour's access. You can take as much as you want out of that library as you want for the 1 hour. That's what you're paying for. So get your money's worth. I would say to people, ask me the hardest questions.
That's awesome. It's like, become a library. If you are a library, if you have that much in you, then people want access. People want to come towards that, and that's how you build.
Oh man,
that's awesome. All right, so
it's great.
Oh, did you want to say something on that?
No, I was just going to say it's how you grow exponentially. That's why mentors can cause you to grow exponentially, because you access their libraries. You don't have to do 13 and a half. You don't have to do the same study I do. Just access the library through the mentorship, relationship, some sort of a contract or something. Access it intentionally, and you'll be able to, go a lot quicker than I did. I already paid the price, 13,500 hours. You access me through mentorship or whatever it is, whoever mentors in your life, and let them accelerate you. You'll have to pay your own price for your own thing, but these will accelerate you rather than just trying to kind of rough it out yourself.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so last little topic before we wind up. Because it's crazy to hear how you've worked with businesses and you've seen them going from nothing to millions or multi-millions. What's some things that, if say someone's on like hundreds of thousands of revenue, or below, what are some key things that they need to do if they want to scale up to multi-million?
The first thing I'd say to you is, and say to everyone that's listening, life rewards you to the place of your incompetence, right? So in the marketplace, the size of your business or the scope or whatever is the marketplace telling you your competence level, right? Oh, but what about the uncontrollables? Forget that, right? You whatever that is, and that's, you might go. Some people might shirk at that, going, "Oh no, it's not my fault." Listen. At the end of the day, you're either a victim or you're going to be a leader, right? So just be honest, be humble enough to go, wherever I am today, that is my level of expertise. That's my level. So if I want to take a business from $200,000 a year, let's say the idea is I want to scale it. I want to take it from 200,000. I want to hit $1 million, right? So, in Australia, that less than 4% of businesses turn over more than $1 million a year, right? That's interesting dynamic. But let's say I want to go, okay, what the first thing is that you are the bottleneck. Come back to this thing. I am the bottleneck. There are things that I'm doing, ways that I've built this business that have bottlenecked the business. There's only three main circles of business, right? Staff, systems, and sales. Staff, systems, and sales. If you're the only staff member, then you fit in that staff bucket, which means you've got to evolve that. Systems, right? That's how things happen. You've got to get better systems. And sales. You've just got to work on sales, marketing, how you're presenting yourself. Those three circles. Most business people say to me, "Oh man, Dave, I've got like 60, 70 things going on, or I've got 10 things that I'm thinking about." And I'm like, 3 things: staff, system, sales. Work on those 3. If you get all 3 of those humming, right, the business will accelerate. If you get 2, the business will grow. If one of them is doing really well and the other 2 aren't, the business is stagnated or you'll go broke. You can have the best staff in the world, but if your sales suck, you're broke, right? You can have the best sales in the world, but if your systems are terrible, you understand, like sales, system, staff. They're the
It's
three
awesome.
things. You want to scale, it'll be sales, system, staff. The challenges will be in that, and the answers will be in those three circles.
That's really good. That's really good. It makes it simpler because you think when like if you're going to be doing multi-million dollars, like how's one person going to manage all that? But
Yeah.
those three categories are very, very helpful to
Yeah,
think of it in that way.
what should happen is the guy or the girl who's got a company of $5 million compared to the guy or the girl that's got a company at say $500,000. If you've done it right, the one at 5 million should work less, should be controlling less, and should make less decisions than the one that's at 500,000. At 5 million, if you built the business well, it shouldn't be all living on you, on your innovation. At that point, you should have great systems. You should have a great team around you. And you know what? You should have a great funnel for sales and marketing. And, you shouldn't be working, harder at 5 million than you are at 500,000. You should be working, respectfully, I work less hard, not as hard now than I did when I started the consulting. That doesn't mean I don't work hard, by the way, but I'm just more, because I've evolved. I say this humbly. I'm more potent, right, than I ever was. I'm more. I just don't waste. I don't waste. I don't have a lot of waste around my time.
Yeah.
Because, I'm skilled, and sales systems and staff is set. So
It's awesome.
Should be a joy.
It's really good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Do you have any last final encouragements for people wanting to get into all this stuff? Yeah. Anything you want to finish on?
I'd just say, listen, most business journeys isn't this. It's not that. It's this. Right. And all I'd say to you is this: when you get tired and frustrated, don't quit. Just figure out how to take a rest. Like you'll want to quit every other day in a certain season of being an entrepreneur. Everybody does. Even when you're at a big level, there's days that I still feel like quitting. Right? It's just emotion. I just don't entertain that anymore. I'll never quit, but when I get tired or discouraged, I might take a rest. Sometimes the best thing you can do is sleep. You know what I mean? Just go to sleep. Just or go to the beach. Sometimes when it's all happening, don't sit there going, should I quit? The problem with quitting is you've got nothing after you quit, except that you quit. And just that's all I'd say to you. We're in an intense season, crazy season. Lots of things aren't in your control. Don't get mad at everyone and at the government and at yourself and at, whatever. Just if you're frustrated, if you feel like quitting, just take a rest. That's all I'd say. And take a breath. There's always tomorrow. We'll pick it back up tomorrow. And fix it tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really encouraging. All right. Well, thank you so much, David, for sharing all
You're
that.
welcome.
If you were watching this and you got value out of it, I think this is one of those podcasts where you should watch it back again, take some notes, and implement this, because David's, been doing this for a long time. So this stuff is really valuable. And if you're looking for a mentor, a business coach, definitely hit up David. He's amazing. I'll leave some some links to your socials so you can check him out. But other than that, thanks again, David. And thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next episode.